So in this video, I want to talk about the cost of living in Ukraine and how it compares to some of the other cities. And so in this video, we're going to be talking about mainly Kiev because that is the city I'm most familiar with. But, just to keep things in perspective, the prices in Kiev are going to be obviously a little bit bigger than some of the other bigger cities and probably quite a lot bigger than some of their smaller cities as well. But I'm going to be getting into all of that later on in the video. And so in this video, I want to talk about several things. I want to cover living, the cost of living, apartments, utilities, things like that. I want to talk about the cost of food. We're talking about restaurants, takeout, if you stay at home and cook. And then I want to also talk about recreation, right? If you want to travel, you want to go see a movie, you want to go see a play, and things like that. Now, before we start, just want to give you an example, is that according to some of the sites out there that compare cost of living and things like that, Kiev is 20% cheaper than Moscow, it's 80% cheaper than New York City, it's 40% cheaper than Madrid, and 30% lower than Warsaw. I think that's a little bit higher. I think it's maybe not that much. And then it's similar to Minsk, which is the capital of the neighboring country of Belarus, okay? And so just to give you an example, the average kind of monthly salary here, right, the statistical average, is around $500, right? And this is mainly for Kiev, the capital. I think it's maybe 500 to 550, somewhere around there. So on average, that is how much, people make in the capital. Of course, there are a lot of people that make lower. There are people that make a lot more. There are people that, in IT professions that definitely earn more than that. But if you go to some of the other cities, including Kharkov, Odessa, Dnieper, some of the other bigger cities, the average salaries are going to be a little bit lower, but you're going to still have that varying changes, okay? And so I want to start out with the eating part, right? Because I know many of you are, you might be interested in visiting, but maybe you're not interested in renting an apartment long term or short term. Maybe you want to stay for a couple nights. And so you got to eat, right? So let's talk about eating, okay? So if you want to go out, let's start from the smallest amount you have to pay to the highest, okay? So I'm going to talk about a little bit of my experience. If you want to go out and you want to grab maybe a like a falafel, that kind of sandwich, something fast food, that's gonna cost you something around like 50 hryvnia, and I'm gonna be speaking in the local currency. And if you want to convert to the to dollars, just divide it by 25 to 30. I think it's $1 is around 28 hryvnia at the time of the filming right now. And so you can divide it by 25. You can divide it by 30, it's somewhere around there. So let's talk about the basics, right? Let's talk about fast food, right? There's a lot of places around here that serve fast food. And let's say you want to go out and you want to grab a fast food burger. Now, this is not going to be the best burger you ever had in your life. This is going to be a very, very basic burger. Expect to pay around 50, 60, 70 hryvnia, okay? So 50 hryvnia is roughly $2, a little bit less than $2. And so you can kind of do the math and go from there. So anywhere from $2, $2.20 around there. Now, what about coffee, tea, things like that? Coffee is around $1, right? If you're walking around, you can get it for 18 hryvnia, which is less than $1. You can get it for around $1, depending on where you go. We're talking about these kind of, fast food places. We're talking about these coffee shops on the street. So expect to pay about $1, $1.50 for coffee, okay? Now, let's say you want something a little bit better. You don't want like a sandwich or wrap. You want to go to, a place that's just a little bit higher, okay? So let's say there's a place where I live. They have really good Israeli food, okay? And so you want to get one of those wraps. It has beef, really good food, right? It's still kind of fast food, a little bit better than fast food. This is going to cost you around 130 to about 180 hryvnia, okay? So you can do the math in there, right? So 100 hryvnia is like $4, a little bit less than $4. And you can kind of do the math in there. If you want to get like a little wrap, a hummus wrap, things like that, it's going to cost you 100 hryvnia, right? Now, let's talk about something a little bit better, right? Let's say you want a burger that's mid-range, okay? You don't want, a cheapy burger. You don't want a burger for $1. You want something mid-level. That's you can say is good, like maybe 8 out of 10 or something like that. That's gonna set you back about 150 to maybe 200, 180 grivna or so. And this is a burger that you know you can kind of compare with New York style burgers that you might be getting in the States, or you know some of the good places of where you are from. If you want a really good burger, like one of my favorite burgers, and I would say even like the most expensive burger I had here, it's gonna cost you around 250 grivna, right? Which is a little bit less than $10, okay? What is that, like $8 or something like that. Now let's talk about business lunches, okay? The business lunches are very popular here in Ukraine, especially in Kiev. Basically, you're walking around the streets, you're gonna see places advertising business lunches. What is exactly a business lunch? If you're not familiar with that concept, a business lunch is basically a set meal, okay? It's a set meal. They typically give you a soup, they give you a second course, and they give you maybe a drink, maybe a couple of pieces of bread. That is kind of what you should come to expect. Of course, it varies from place to place, and so there was a time in my life when I used to have business lunches almost every single day. Obviously, they're only served on weekdays, and I would have a business lunch from a different restaurant every single day. Nowadays, I mostly eat at home a lot more. But if you are going to be having business lunches, and it's pretty decent, right? Expect to pay anywhere from, the minimum could be around maybe 50, 60 grivna, and this is obviously not going to be, you know, the highest quality, to maybe the most expensive that I had was probably around 200, 250 grivna, right? And obviously sky's the limit, but for business lunches, you're not going to be paying more than $10. I mean, it's just how it is. It doesn't make sense to charge $20 for a business lunch, because people who go and have a business lunch, they expect to pay under $10, right? And so the best that I had from a really nice restaurant in the center of the capital here was around 250 grivna, and I was like, okay, that's taking it a bit too far. So that's a little bit less than $10. So from $2 to $6 to $2 to $5, I would say, you can expect to have a really nice lunch, okay? And that's something to be expected. Now, let's talk about a regular meal at a restaurant, right? You want to go, you know, maybe in the evening, or maybe you're going to be skipping a business lunch. You want to go out, you want to have a normal meal. How much is that going to cost? Well, so like I mentioned before, it really depends. Obviously, we're not talking about fast food anymore. We are talking about a normal restaurant, a normal sit-down restaurant, not takeaway, not anything like that. And typically, you can expect to pay anywhere from $10 and up, right? Well, $8 and up. I would say 250 grivna and up, okay? That is something, that is going to be the bare minimum, okay? Because below that, you're in kind of this fast food takeaway territory, okay? And so if you go to a nice restaurant, expect to pay anywhere from 250 grivna to maybe 600 grivna or so for one person. 500. I remember when I went out, you know, with my friend once, we went to a really nice restaurant and I promised him dinner. He won the bet, and I ended up paying close to 1,000 grivna. This was a couple of years ago, and in my mind, when I reached that almost that 1,000 grivna barrier for two people, that was a lot, right? And that's around what, $35, $37, something like that for two people. So that is probably one of the highest that I paid back then. Obviously, I've paid more, but if you are paying around 500, you know, each, 600 each, you're gonna have good food, okay? You're gonna have great food. The other day we went out and we went to this place that serves ribs in the center of Kiev, great ribs, and we paid around 1,200 grivna, which is around $50 or so. I think it was $48. I was charged $49. And you're gonna get, we had like 3 ribs between the two of us. We had 2 entrees, we had juices, all these things, and we paid $25 each. So for $25 per person, you can eat pretty well. Of course, sky's the limit. There are very expensive restaurants in the city where you can pay $100 per head, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about a restaurant a normal person can go to and, you know, have a normal meal. And so that is kind of what you should be expecting. So if you're not going to be pinching pennies, if you want to have a regular meal, in a nice restaurant, not takeout, not you know, fast food, or, you know, maybe a nice burger, but maybe something better, maybe some fusion restaurant, maybe something nicer, you can expect to pay about 500 grivna, which is, you know, you can do the math on that, and you're gonna have a really nice meal from that. And so I don't think I've ever paid more for my own, for one person, more than like 500 grivna. Okay, and this is in the Kiev, in the center, in a nice restaurant. Obviously, if you go out of town, you go to some of these other second-tier cities. You're gonna go to a city called Lviv in the western part. You're gonna pay a little bit less than that because it's a smaller city. The purchasing power is not there. All right. So in terms of food, it's really good. And honestly, a lot of these business lunches, it makes you kind of wonder. It's a lot easier to basically go out and have these business lunches than even cooking food at home. So sometimes you're going to be making that decision. If you are alone, if you don't have a family, you don't have a significant other, it's going to be a lot, I think, cheaper for you to just go out and have business lunches and have, you know, maybe a decent dinner than staying at home and buying all this food and cooking at home. So that's one thing. Now let's talk about living. One of my favorite topics, living. How much does it cost to live? Okay, I also put transportation here real quick. So let's talk about transportation real quick. And in terms of transportation, you have public transportation. This includes the train, the metro, the subway, includes buses, includes trams, trolley buses, things like that. And the flat rate for that is 8 grivna. Okay, and so you can do the math on that. It's cents, right? It's not even a dollar. And for that, you can basically ride. That's just, you know, they don't have a system where you pay for the distance you're covering. They basically have a system where you just buy the ticket and you ride, then you buy another one. So it's very, very affordable, right? It's like $2.25 in New York City. And here it's 8 grivna, right? So it's like, you know, 20 cents or whatever that number is. And so that's the thing. Uber is also another interesting thing to talk about, is that because Uber is also very, very affordable, right? If you are in the center of Kiev, right, your typical Uber ride is going to be up to $2. Okay, we're talking about without the surcharges. If you go outside the center, but you're still in Kiev, let's say you're going, so for instance, let's say you're in the center and you want to go to the edge of Kiev, and it's going to cost you around 100, 110, maybe 120 grivna, right? So $4 or $6, and you are all the way at the edge of Kiev, okay? And so Uber is another really, really affordable form of transportation. Obviously, if you have dollars, if you're a Westerner and you have dollars and you have euros, Uber is great. I used to take Ubers all the time a couple of years ago, but then I was spending like $100, $150 a month on Uber, and I realized like I can even save more money by not taking Uber because it's cheap, relatively inexpensive, but why even take it when I can take a metro or a bus, and it works well, it's always on time, and I can save a bunch of money. So that's something you have to keep in mind, right? So that's when it comes to living, right? You have your public, you have Uber, all of it is very, very affordable. Let's talk about living. Let's talk about renting apartments, okay? So on Airbnb, you can get a room for anywhere from $10. I think the minimum on Airbnb, at least the last time I checked, is $10 per night. So you can get a room for $10 per night in the center of the city, somewhere in the center. It might not be in the historical part of Kiev, but it's going to be in the center, okay? You can get, you know, maybe a nicer room for $20, okay? Maybe 20, 30, because for $10, you're just gonna get a bare bones situation, okay? If you wanna rent short term, right? You wanna rent in the center, on Airbnb, you'll be able to find a place for around, I would say, $550 to around $600 per month. Now, granted, this is kind of the minimum, right? And this is Airbnb, and the prices are going to be inflated a little bit, but that is how much you can expect to pay for Airbnb. This is going to be in the center. It might not be in the historical part, but it's still going to be relatively in the center. Okay, if you want something better, it's going to cost you somewhere around $700, $800 on Airbnb. Obviously, for $1,000, you can get a pretty nice apartment. It's not going to be a penthouse, but it's going to be a pretty nice apartment. Okay. Next, let's talk about longer term living, 6-month contract and out, things like that. Not Airbnb, going to one of these local sites and finding an apartment, okay? And so this is for people that want to come here for a month, or they want to come here for half a year. I met a guy the other day at a gym here, and he basically told me that he's living here for a year and just wanted to spend a year here. No, so if you want to come here for 6 months to a year or more, let me tell you the prices you should be expecting. I think the bare minimum, and when I say bare minimum, we are talking about in the center. So the first thing, I want to set a couple of things straight, right? When I'm listing the prices, we are talking about in the center of Kiev. We're not talking about the outer neighborhoods, with these Soviet buildings. We're talking about something relatively nice. And if you want something nice and you want something kind of in the center, and we're talking about, let's say, a 1-bedroom, you should expect to pay around, I would say the minimum for a nice place should be around $600 to $650. Okay, that's the absolute minimum. Obviously, as you go more in price, you can get something nicer. Like for $700, you can get a nicer apartment in the center. It's going to be a 1-bedroom. It's not going to be huge, but it's going to be newly remodeled. Okay, for $800, you can get something fairly decent. It could be maybe a small apartment, but nicely remodeled. It could be a slightly bigger apartment, also nicely remodeled. If you want to spend $900, $1,000, for $1,000 a month, you can expect to get something even better. For $1,000 a month, you can expect to get maybe a 3-bedroom apartment, nicely remodeled. Maybe it's going to be in a high-rise somewhere, not in the center, but also in a very nice neighborhood. Or it's going to be in the center in one of these historical areas, also as well for $1,000. Obviously, if you want to spend $1,200, $1,500, you're going to have awesome views. Maybe you're going to have the view of the main park. Maybe it's going to be 1,000 square feet, or something crazy like that. If you want that, right? So if you have $1,000, $1,500, $1,300 per month for budget, you're gonna be living fairly well here. And so, just to give you a reference, when I first moved here, I rented an apartment that was costing me around, I would say, $500 a month, right? And this was a small apartment, but the area was awesome. It was a small apartment. Okay, later on, I started to rent an apartment that was $700 a month. It was slightly bigger. It was in a same area. It was slightly bigger. It had a better remodeling. Now I'm paying $800 a month, and my apartment is a lot bigger. It's in a great neighborhood, also in the center. The neighborhoods are all the same. The only thing that changes the apartment, right? So that is something you have to keep in mind. If you have $1,000, $1,500, you're going to be living like a king here. Okay. Let's talk about recreation, right? How much is a train ticket? How much is a plane ticket? How much is a movie theater? That kind of thing. So a train ticket, if you want to go from one part of the country to another, it's going to cost you around $20. Okay, that's like for second class, $20, right? A plane ticket, okay? A plane ticket is going to cost you somewhere around, it's going to cost you about $100. Maybe $80. We're talking about internal flights, right? You're gonna pay around $80 to $100 for a plane ticket. Okay, that is something that you have to keep in mind. The other thing about it is things like movie theaters. So a movie theater ticket is gonna cost you around $5 to $7, and then if you want to go see a play, see a show, things like that, it might cost you up to $10. Something like that, maybe $5 to $10, right? So you can compare that with Broadway in New York City. And I've seen some amazing performances here. And so that is something to keep in mind, is that there's some incredible performances here. So if you're into that, you're gonna have a great time with that. And so that's the thing. Now, the question is, how much money do you need to have a comfortable lifestyle here, okay? Is this place for backpackers, or is this place for somebody that wants to retire here? Or is this place for young professionals? Or is this place for somebody a little bit older? So let me give you some numbers, right? $800 is, I would say, like the bare minimum, okay? You can probably survive if you're maybe, I don't even know who you are, right? You could be a young backpacker, maybe you could be somebody trying to build a startup. I don't care who you are, but if you just want the minimum, for like a minimum kind of what is that called, ramen lifestyle, right? Just getting by. And I had that lifestyle at one point in my life, not even one point, multiple points in my life. I've endured those lifestyles. it's gonna be around $600, maybe $660 for everything. $700 for everything. You get an apartment somewhere for $500 and $200 for food. But you're not gonna be able to go out, you're not gonna be able to go to nice restaurants, you can't have a drink every now and then, you can't have a show every now and then, you can't really travel around the country. The next level up is somebody is around $1,500 a month, okay? So we're talking about $700 for an apartment and $800 for everything else. For $1,500 a month, you can have a decent lifestyle here, right? This is kind of the mid-range lifestyle. You can have a really nice apartment in the center. You're gonna have food to go out. You're gonna have food to basically buy in supermarkets, in really nice supermarkets. You're gonna have food to go out to nice restaurants, maybe a couple of times a week, maybe 3 times a week or so. You're gonna have money to to buy things for you. You're gonna have money for maybe traveling here and there, maybe once a month for some traveling. You're gonna have funds for that. Now, if you want that bowler lifestyle, you want that lifestyle where you don't really have to think about money that much, that number is gonna be $3,000 a month. So for $3,000 a month, you can have a really nice apartment. Obviously, you can have an apartment that costs $3,000 a month, but that's one thing. But I mean, you can get an apartment that for $1,000, for $700 a month, depending on if it's just for yourself or for somebody else as well. And for $700 a month, you can have a really nice apartment that leaves you with $2,300 for a lot of other things. Obviously, I would probably get a better apartment. So that means like maybe getting an apartment for $1,500 a month and then $1,500 for everything else. And you can have a pretty lifestyle. You could even rent a car to go anywhere you want. You can take Ubers every now and then. You can go and have really nice sushi, and they have really nice sushi here in Ukraine. You can go to great restaurants maybe half the week. You can have nice takeout. So for $3,000 a month, you're gonna have a really great lifestyle. So overall, Kyiv is one of the lower cost big capitals where you can have a decent standard of living than I've been to in my life, because I've been to over 80 countries, and I've been to some cheap places, I've been to some expensive places, and Kyiv is Eastern Europe, but it's still Europe, and so you're gonna have pretty nice access to a lot of amenities that you might have access to in New York City as well, but it's gonna be like 5 times cheaper at least. And so that is all I wanted to talk about in this video, just to give you a rough overview of how much things are here, so that you know what to expect, you know what the prices are like. A lot of people think that Eastern Europe is like dirt cheap. It's not that cheap. There are cheaper places in Southeast Asia. There are cheaper places in Thailand. I used to rent a really nice apartment in Thailand for like $200 a month. And so it's not, it's not at that level. But having said that, when you're talking about the city that's located in a really nice position in Europe, you have Western Europe, you have Eastern Europe, you have Middle East, you have Central Asia, very close. In that case, it makes a lot of sense, because you have really good, amenities here. You have nice things that you can buy, nice things that you can enjoy, and then you can travel and you can go to nice places as well. All right, so this is all I wanted to talk about in this video. Really hope you enjoyed it and found the content very valuable. If you have any questions, leave them below in the comments area. And if you enjoyed this video, smash the like button, and I will see you in the next video.